Hey guys, I'm Dimension Jump, and today I'll be talking about 5 unique ways to fight bosses. Now, within games, or within video games, a lot of the challenge, I would say, comes from the bosses, because they are like these big enemy types that offer a big challenge, and you can fight them mainly head on, but depending on the games that you might play, each boss is different in terms of how you approach them in terms of the fight. And there are some bosses that you will normally just have to hit a couple of times and then the fight's over. But there are some bosses in some games that you can fight in a variety of ways. So that's what this list is mainly going to be talking about. So yeah. So for number 5 is the Reaper flu technique thing in Persona 5 specifically, because in Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal, there are certain days in the game in which certain shadows will have a certain afflictments on. So some shadows will be, they could have drowsiness, they could have burning on them, they could be frozen or something like that. It really depends on the day that you might go into places like Mementos, for example. And in Persona 5, and also well as Royal, there are specific days in which certain shadows will have certain afflictments on. I think they will have despair. I think that's one of the things. And this can happen to the Reaper. Now, this can only happen if you're playing Persona 5, the original Persona 5, not Royal, because it doesn't work in Royal. And I don't 100% remember which days they happen, but I think it happens towards the end of the game for Persona 5. And if you go on any of the days that shadows have despair on, this can also affect the Reaper. And this can only take a few turns, I think 3 to 4 turns until the Reaper is defeated. And all you need to do is just guard, and that is it. And that's, I think, an easy way to defeat the Reaper that isn't just trying to take him head on normally if you're playing through Persona 5, if you're not using the broken Yoshitsune tech. And yeah, I think this is a really good way of just leveling up your cast of characters and stuff like that. So yeah, if you ever wanted to level up your team, the Reaper flu technique is a really good way of doing it. But it was taken out in Persona 5 Royal, so you might have to use any of the DLC personas, or take it out without using them, or use Yoshitsune. So yeah. For number 4 is using Key's eyes on Gleeoks. Now, the Gleeoks can be found within a variety of areas within Tears of the Kingdom, and they are a super boss, or a roaming super boss, in the sense that they can be fought in a variety of areas, and they are very hard to fight. And there are 4 varieties of them. There's the Ice, Fire, Thunder, and King variants. And all these Gleeoks, they all have the same sort of weakness in the sense that you have to hit the heads, and then you have to, once they've been taken out, you can deal damage. But one of the easier ways, if you're fighting the Thunder, you can count the Thunder, but if you're fighting the Ice or Fire, or even if you're fighting the King Gleeok, you can use the Key's eyes. And if you're fighting the Ice and Fire versions, you can use the elemental Key's eyes that they're weak against. So Ice for Fire Gleeoks, and then the Fire for the Ice Gleeoks. And that's so cool. I think it's a good way of honing your abilities, because the Key's eyes kind of hone in on the Gleeok heads, and if you're using the elemental opposite, it will create a huge wave of fire or ice, and they'll take out the other heads as well. And I think it's a really cool way of just using it to damage the heads, as well as damaging the Gleeok as a whole. And yeah, I think it's just a very fun strategy of just using the key's eyes to take out the Gleeoks, and it's a really fun technique, and I think it's a good strategy in terms of you having to prepare to get a lot of not Gleeok guys, Key's eyeballs to use it against the Gleeoks. So yeah, for number 3 is the broken Yoshitsune on the twins in Persona 5, as well as Persona 5 Royal. Now, you could say why not use the DLC Persona. I think Izanagi no Okami Picaro in Persona 5 Royal. And I would say, yes, he could use it, but I think that's kind of cheating a bit when it comes to this specific point. Because with that particular Persona, you can just buy it and then just use it whenever. But with Yoshitsune, you have to create the persona if you want to use it against the twins. Because with Izanagi no Okami Picaro, it's just use Mind Charge and then use Myriad Truths. But with Yoshitsune, you have to get specific personas with specific abilities in order to get the Yoshitsune that you want. Because Yoshitsune, realistically, if you want to fight the twins, needs 2 moves. Charge, which is basically a move similar to Mind Charge, in that with that particular move, it doubles your magic. But if you're using regular charge, or just charge, that doubles the next physical move. And then you can give Yoshitsune its signature move, which I don't really 100% remember at the moment. But also, you can give Yoshitsune different sort of passive abilities. So you can have like some draining moves, some reflective moves, that sort of thing. And then when you fight the twins, you can use charge and then use its signature move to deal damage to both twins. Because its signature move, it's an ability or a move that can affect all of the enemies on the field. And the twins will use, fire skills, physical skills, that sort of stuff to deal damage to you and your party. And if for Joker, if you have Yoshitsune on, it will just either reflect or drain those specific moves, depending on which one uses a particular move. Whether one uses a physical skill, one uses a magic skill, that sort of thing. So yeah, and also if you want to fight the twins, I would suggest fighting them at a high enough level to beat them. So yeah, and also you can fight them in New Game Plus. So yeah, for number 2 is either diving or using arrows in Kogera's weak spots. Now, Kogera, I would say for this particular point, is one of those unique bosses where you might use one move or the other and will be surprised about the other ability or other move that you can use on Kogera. Because when I first played Tears of the Kingdom and on a lot of other replays, I would always dive or use the diving mechanic to go through all of Kogera's weak spots, because I think with that one, it's the most fun and also the more challenging one, I would say, out of the two things. And it wasn't until I remember watching a video made by Rabbid Luigi, in that I learned about the whole arrow technique, and that you can use arrows to hit Kogera's weak spots. And that's really cool, because with the Kogera fight, there isn't a right or wrong answer when it comes to fighting him. And I think it's a really cool way of experiencing doing the other way. And I do prefer the diving thing over the arrows when it comes to fighting Kogera, because with the arrows, I think it makes the fight go a lot easier and a lot more faster, because you're using arrows, and if you have like Choo Choo Jelly or Key Swing that can melt Kogera's ice, it's fun. I think it's not as fun as diving into Kogera itself. So yeah. And for number 1 is jumping on top of the imprisoned's head. Now, for this fight, it's kind of similar to how you might fight Kogera, because with the imprisoned, you can either land on its head to deal damage, or make it trip over by attacking its like weird fleshy bud things on its toes, or well, yeah, on his feet. And yeah, it's kind of similar to that with Kogera, where you can either dive or use your arrows to deal damage to Kogera. And with the Imprisoned, a lot of the times, or a lot of the playthroughs that I've done whenever I replay Skyward Sword, I always jump on the Imprisoned's head because I think that's a whole lot easier than just going around and just chopping off its toes. Because I think the longer the Imprisoned does, all the fights you do with the Imprisoned, the harder I think it is to try and actually hit the toes. Especially when it comes to like the second time you fight him and the third time, because he grows arms and then he grows a tail in his third phase, and then in his third phase he can fly. So yeah, and I think jumping on his head is a lot better, and it is a lot faster to try and attack his spike ceiling thing on his head. And in the second and third phase, it does get a bit trickier because the imprisoned, if you do try and jump onto the imprisoned's head, he will try and shake you off. But there's a way around this because by that time you will have Groose helping you because he will have made a contraption called the Grootinator that will launch bombs at the imprisoned, which will stun him for a bit. And this does help a lot better because you can take advantage of this by either taking or hitting the toes or jumping on his head, and then using or attacking the spike to deal damage. So yeah, I think the Imprisoned, even though it's not the best fight in Skyward Sword when it comes to fighting him, it does have a unique way of having to fight him. So yeah, so those have been my top 5 unique ways of fighting bosses in video games. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.